Avery County Schools Spotlight on Education is brought to you by John and Hank Phillips of Avery County Tire and Service in Newland, your tire and car service specialists.
Michelin makes some of the most fuel-efficient tires on the road, so you can take the pump down. Find out how much you can save at MichelinMan.com. Michelin, a better way forward.
Avery Tire and Service has served Newland, Avery County, and the entire High Country for the last 50 years. Family owned and operated, John and Hank Phillips have put together an outstanding team of skilled personnel who can supply and fill all of your automotive and truck needs. Located in the center of Newland, Avery Tire and Service is your local supplier for Michelin tires, as well as the supplier for all the top brands for every part of your vehicle. From tires to brakes, from oil changes to any kind of car or truck service, Avery Tire and Service can do it all, and always at the very highest level of friendliness and quality. If a business has been around for 50 years, then they obviously must be the best at what they do. Avery Tire and Service in Newland, still proudly serving you and all of the High Country.
Welcome to another edition of the Superintendent Spotlight on Education in Avery County. Me today is Mr. Ellis Ayers. Ellis, welcome. Ellis wears a lot of hats in Avery County. Accountability, curriculum instruction, and just about anything else we want him to do, especially talking to folks in Raleigh. And Ellis, as we think about Raleigh, there's been a lot of changes this year as it applies to the public schools. So talk to us a little bit about those changes.
Had an awful lot of changes over the past couple of years, actually, but this year really several things are pretty dramatically different. This is the second year that we're following the Common Core standards in reading and math. As part of that move to the Common Core, one of the big legislative changes has been the Read to Achieve legislation. And that really is important for third grade. But overall, it really is important, I think, throughout the entire school system. The point of Read to Achieve is not just to help third graders. The point is to try to help all students learn to read better without being promoted on, such that we've got students that ultimately graduate high school with good skills. So specifically as it relates to third grade, those changes have really taken an interesting turn over the course of the year. Where we started and where we are right now are not exactly the same point.
No, there's been a lot of discussion in the General Assembly and Department of Public Instruction, others, groups about what we need to change with Read to Achieve. A lot of controversy. So what are some of those changes after the initial changes?
The way the whole process is set up is that at the very beginning of the year, third graders took a beginning of grade test. It was just to see where are they in relation to grade level standards. Gave the schools a real good picture as to what students are very ready, what students are pretty much on track, and where are some places that we might need to pay some extra attention to get some students some extra services before that end of grade test. And so we've been working on that during the course of the school year. But then the next step in that process is that end of grade test that comes at the end of the year, and that's where Read to Achieve really starts to kick in. Those students at the end of the school year, if they do not pass the end of grade test, and this is third grade only, it's not fourth, fifth grade or on up, it's only third grade. If those students don't pass the test, there's a series of steps that have to, or decisions that have to be made before that child moves on to their next grade.
And Ellis, some of those options, and there are options, it's not just a one test.
No, it's
not.
So
what are some of those options for folks out there probably very interested? They have a third grader, will have a third grader, about what are some of the other ways students can show they're proficient readers other than that one test in time?
And I think that's really important to keep in mind, and it's not just with third grade, it's really all grades. That end of grade test is a measure of one day, how a student is able to read. And it's an important day, but it's not, it doesn't counterbalance everything that student and that teacher did over the course of that entire school year. And so there's other ways to show measures of a student being on grade level. And the law, as it's written, has gone ahead and laid out some of those things and some of the processes. So if a student by chance is not proficient on that EOG at the end of the year, they get the opportunity they can take that test again. Sometimes students just come in, they had a rough morning, didn't have a good breakfast, they just weren't feeling well, didn't sleep well the night before. They come right back in, take that test again, they knock it out, and they really show what they know. So that's an opportunity. There's also another opportunity for an alternative test. It's formatted a little bit differently. Whereas an end of grade passage might be 8, 9 paragraphs, and then you have a series of questions about it. They call it the Read to Achieve test, in which you have the same number of questions, but the questions are located right after the paragraph where the content is contained. So have a different format, and parents are involved in that option in terms of what they want to do for their child. So those are the testing options, but it really moves beyond that, and that's where some of the, I won't say the controversy, but at least some of the changes in options have arisen as DPI and the state board and the legislature have been back and forth making sure they're consistent. And that really is about a reading portfolio is what they're talking about there.
And what does that portfolio look like? I'm sure a lot of our listening audience is beginning to hear about the portfolio, and maybe there's some uncertainty about what that really means. So just the Cliff Notes version, what is that portfolio for a third grade student?
A portfolio is, it's very much like it sounds. It's a series of work samples. Whereas the end of grade test can be 50 or 60 questions students are taking at one time over the course of 2 to 3 hours. It's as much a test about comprehension as it is about endurance.
Yeah, a lot of endurance.
And that's really tough, especially when you're talking about third graders, 8 and 9-year-old students. We've got a lot of students, not just in Avery County, but throughout the state, can read, but just still are not quite mature enough to read over that length of time. And so the portfolio was created, and it's a series of questions on specific standards. And if students collect that portfolio of standards showing that I'm proficient at this standard, it's a series of 15 questions. If they can show that with each of the 12 standards that the state has identified, then they can also be deemed proficient.
Now, Ellis, if I'm a third grade parent and I'm concerned right now about my child, I know my teacher's working, communicating with me, but if I get to the end of the year and my child doesn't pass that third grade reading test, is not proficient, what can I expect?
First thing you're going to expect is a phone call. You're going to get individual contact from a parent or from the principal, from the teacher, and saying, hey, here's where your options are. Because this is not a decision that's made solely by a teacher, solely by a principal. The parent's very much involved in this process. During the course of that phone call, you're going to find out what your options are, which do you want your child to take that end of grade test again? Do you want them to take the Read to Achieve test? Where exactly has my child stood on that portfolio? Because that's something that we're collecting now. We're trying to be proactive with our students to show that what they know. At this point in time, it actually is a good practice that our teachers feel to build up some of that endurance for the end of grade test, and it also shows some teachers on what to go back and maybe do some teaching on now before they get to that end of grade test. So during the course of that phone call, find out about what those options are, where they stand on the portfolio, and if they need to test again. At the end of that process, let's say the student doesn't have a finished portfolio and does not pass either the Read to Achieve or the end of grade test. We're going to have a summer camp. And the state has put this in place for students, and it can be up to 6 weeks. And I say up to 6 weeks because if a student is right on the verge of having a completed portfolio, they complete that portfolio during the first week of summer camp, they're finished and ready to go on to 4th grade.
A lot of different ways to show your proficient, which is a good thing.
Yes.
I think we all feel good about that. Else, what are we doing in Avery County to not wait till 3rd grade to really start to emphasize being a good reader? What are some of the activities we're doing and even some summer programs we've worked on?
Well, one of I think the most exciting things that we've started this year is a cohort of teachers that are working with Appalachian State. And I think that's a big help on 2 different fronts. One, we get the bulk of our new teachers from Appalachian. And I think it helps Appalachian know what exactly are teachers today facing, such that it helps them better prepare. But even more so, it gives our teachers more time with the experts of exactly how does a child learn to read, and not do most children learn how to read. How do those teachers learn how to read, or how do those students learn how to read that maybe don't learn like everyone else?
Struggle a little bit.
Yes, and provides them some different strategies. So a big piece of that is a reading clinic that they're putting in place, which is very much like the research reading clinic that they have over here in Appalachian. So that's a big piece, and trying to replicate that not only with the teachers in that cohort, but really letting that spread throughout our schools right now.
And our summer programs, we're doing some work with students in the summer, even before third grade and after third grade, to really impact their reading skills.
I think you'll find that we have probably one of the more comprehensive summer programs really in the state. When we go off and talk to other school systems about how they're providing assistance to students, and we tell them that we've got a 4-week program for students to come in 4 days a week, focused primarily on literacy, they're extremely jealous. What's also, I think, the great part about that is the parents are very much involved, and the kids are very much involved in loving that process. They see this as not only a wonderful opportunity to help students get caught back up, but they see it as just an enriching opportunity that kids want to be part of. We've got students wanting to come back because they had such a good experience last year.
And they're learning a lot.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
And plus, we can keep Ruth Shirley occupied as principal of summer school, right?
She definitely stays busy working with those kids, and those kids would do anything for her.
Yes, and does a great job with it. Ellis Reed to achieve big change. What about Power School? I know our parents and listeners probably have heard teachers talking about or maybe lamenting about Power School.
Power School is the place where all of our student data is stored. It is where we have names, addresses, phone numbers, student grades, all of those types of things. It used to be NCYs. Well, the state, when we used to have NCYs, it took them 10 years to get the entire state on board. They phased it in. Power School, we did every single student in the state of North Carolina in 1 year at one time, flipped the switch. It's almost like everyone's trying to get on the interstate at one time off of just a handful of lanes, and there have been some traffic snarls. It's sometimes caused some issues with some phone numbers being put in the wrong fields. Not that we did it at the school level, but as the state was moving fields around and building the programming behind it, things got moved. It's delayed transcripts and report cards. There are some places throughout the state, not including Avery County. We got our report cards out, but there's some places that we're not able to send report cards mid-year because of the programming glitches that they've had in Power School. So it's been an adjustment. The light is at the end of the tunnel, but I won't say it's not been without its problems.
We hope that light is not a train coming toward us to wreck us again.
Absolutely.
It has been a tough year for our teachers. You mentioned Common Core, different testing, so a lot of changes and others on the horizon, I believe.
Yes, lots of things do continue to change. That's the only thing I think we can certainly count on. That it's not going to be the same next year as it was this year, but I think what we can hopefully do is to say we're not going to change our focus, which is making sure that students are doing their best.
Ellis, as we're closing up, if I'm a parent or a listener, want a little bit more information about the Read to Achieve, the different testing program, the Common Core curriculum, anything we've talked about, what would you suggest they do?
I'd say the first thing to do is just to go and talk to your principal, teacher at the school. They have a wealth of information there, specific programs that they are using to implement Common Core, all of those other different programs. But also there's a healthy amount of information out there on the NCDPI website. You can check out the website at Avery County Schools, or always feel free to give me a call. I'm just a phone call away, and if I can't find that answer, I will definitely go and get back to you pretty quickly in terms of trying to get you the information that you need.
And it's hard to come up with a current answer.
That answer does change.
The answer we had yesterday might be different today.
That's correct.
Ellis, I personally appreciate the job you do. We're very fortunate in Avery County to have a young man of your ability and character working for kids, and we certainly appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Avery County Schools Spotlight on Education is brought to you by John and Hank Phillips of Avery County Tire and Service in Newland, your tire and car service specialists.
Michelin makes some of the most fuel-efficient tires on the road, so you can take the pump down. Find out how much you can save at michelinman.com. Michelin, a better way forward.
Avery Tire and Service has served Newland, Avery County, and the entire High Country for the last 50 years. Family owned and operated, John and Hank Phillips have put together an outstanding team of skilled personnel who can supply and fill all of your automotive and truck needs. Located in the center of Newland, Avery Tire and Service is your local supplier for Michelin tires, as well as the supplier for all the top brands for every part of your vehicle. From tires to brakes, from oil changes to any kind of car or truck service, Avery Tire and Service can do it all, and always at the very highest level of friendliness and quality. If a business has been around for 50 years, then they obviously must be the best at what they do. Avery Tire and Service in Newland, still proudly serving you and all of the High Country.